Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour, US President Joe Biden speaks to leaders of Israel, Egypt and Qatar in the wake of Hamas hostage deal. IDF chief warns Israel-Gaza conflict will continue for months. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov to hold bilateral talks in Moscow today. The minister holds productive meeting with Russia's Deputy Prime Minister, affirms bilateral cooperation. Sweden edges closer to NATO after vote in Turkish Parliamentary Commission. Vote expected to be held within weeks in Parliament General Assembly. Dense fog engulfs part of North India. Flights, trains, delayed visibility in capital New Delhi, down to 50 meters on Wednesday morning. US President Joe Biden spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the leaders of Qatar and Egypt on Wednesday in the aftermath of a deal to secure the release of dozens of hostages held by Hamas. The White House in a statement said that President Biden emphasized on the critical need to protect the civilian population, including those supporting the humanitarian aid operation, and the importance of allowing civilians to move safely away from areas of ongoing fighting. Adding, the leaders discussed the importance of securing the release of all remaining hostages. Biden is vacationing with his family on the Massachusetts island of Nantucket for Thanksgiving. The White House said summaries of the calls would be released later. President Biden also spoke to Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The White House said Biden and Qatari Emir Sheikh discussed the need to release hostages held in Gaza and efforts to boost humanitarian aid. Qatar and Egypt were mediators between Israel and Hamas in the late November truce. Current diplomatic efforts on a new truce have yielded little public progress so far. The Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza will likely go on for many months, the country's military chief Herzi Halavi has said. Israel has vowed to annihilate Hamas after its fighters infiltrated Israel border towns, killing 1,200 people and took about 240 hostages back to Gaza. The Israeli forces are continuing their offensive against Hamas, deploying multiple methods and strategies.
There are no magic solutions. There are no shortcuts in dismantling a terrorist organization. Only determined and persistent fighting will work, and we are very, very determined. We will reach Hamas's leadership too, whether it takes a week or if it takes months.
Israel's chief military spokesperson Daniel Hagari said that the attacks on ships which have no Israeli links in Red Sea area is an act of Iranian terrorism carried out by the Houthis. Hagari's statement comes after Israel's announcement of an intercepting of a hostile aerial target by an Israeli fighter jet over the Red Sea area, which was en route to Israeli territory.
Today, an Israeli fighter jet intercepted a hostile aerial target in the Red Sea area, which was en route to Israeli territory. It did not cross into Israeli territory. The Houthi fire towards Israeli territory is an act of terrorism. It is an act directed by Iran and by means of Iranian intelligence and weapons. These hostile acts are not directed only at Israel. The attacks at sea on ships which have no Israeli link is an act of Iranian terrorism carried out by the Houthis, and this is a global problem.
White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer discussed planning for the day after Israel-Hamas conflict, including governance and security in Gaza. A White House official said Sullivan and Dermer also discussed efforts to bring home the remaining hostages and a transition to a different phase to maximize the focus on high-value Hamas targets when they met on Tuesday. The United Nations has assigned Sigrid Kaag as the humanitarian coordinator. Her appointment follows last week's UN Security Council resolution calling for more aid to enter the Palestinian enclave. William Densler reports from New York, where the UN is headquartered.
As well as serving as Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister in the Netherlands, Sigrid Kaag has also performed a number of UN duties in the past, including Special Coordinator for Lebanon. Now, as of January 8th, she'll be taking on a new UN role, which is Humanitarian Relief Coordinator in Gaza. The United Nations describes her responsibilities, including her work to facilitate, coordinate, monitor and verify humanitarian relief consignments for Gaza. This is part of a UN Security Council resolution that was passed last week that calls for the urgent steps to be taken to immediately allow the safe, unhindered and expanded humanitarian access in Gaza. The resolution took days of diplomatic wranglings for Council members to find enough consensus to pass it. But critics say it's been watered down and diluted too much, no longer calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. UN aid agencies warn that the healthcare system in Gaza is on the brink of collapse, and other aid officials on the ground warn that a quarter of the population in the Palestinian enclave are facing catastrophic levels of hunger. Recently, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says that a ceasefire is the only way to end the nightmare people in Gaza are currently going through. William Denslow in New York, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, Israeli agency has reported that on Tuesday, 83 humanitarian aid trucks and 7 ambulances were inspected at the Nitzana checkpoint and transferred to Gaza via the Rafah crossing from Egypt. At the request of the UN, the Kerem Shalom border crossing was closed for inspection of aid trucks due to logistic constraints on the Gazan side of the crossing. Earlier, Israeli agency Cognitive Abilities Test reported that 218 trucks loaded with humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza were inspected and transferred to the Gaza Strip on Monday. In a rare find, IDF reserve soldiers demonstrating vigilance and civic responsibility unearthed a well-preserved 1,500-year-old Byzantine lamp near Gaza during the conflict with Hamas. Recognizing the unique discovery, the soldiers handed it to Israel Antiquities Authority archaeologist. The authority confirmed the artifact as a sandal candle from the Byzantine period, like dating back to the 5th or the 6th century CE. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi militia claimed responsibility for a missile attack on Tuesday on a container ship in the Red Sea and for an attempt to attack Israel with drones. MSC Mediterranean Shipping said that there were no injuries to its crew from the attack on its ship, the United 8th, en route from Saudi Arabia to Pakistan. The ship had informed a nearby coalition naval warship about the attack and had taken evasive maneuvers. Meanwhile, Israel mentioned that its aircraft had intercepted a hostile aerial target in the Red Sea area. In a televised address, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sarria said that the group had targeted the vessel, which he identified as MSC United, after the crew failed to respond to warnings, adding that they had carried out a military operation targeting Eilat and other areas on Israel territory, terming them as occupied Palestine. Iran has warned that Israel will pay the price for the assassination of Islamic Revolution Guards Corps veteran commander Saeed Razi Mousavi in Syria. The IRGC announced that Mousavi, serving as a military advisor, was killed in an Israeli missile attack in the Syrian capital Damascus. Mousavi was responsible for backing up the resistance front in Syria and was one of the comrades of the late Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani, who was assassinated in a drone strike near Baghdad International Airport in January 2020. The IRGC's official news outlet quoted a statement. The IRGC stressed in the release that Israel will pay the price for this crime. Iran's defense ministry on Tuesday also vowed response, calling the act as a terrorist crime. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has said that the malicious move by Israel was another indication of its desperation, weakness and helplessness in the region, vowing that Israel will definitely pay the price for its crime, according to a statement published on the website of his office. Let's get to updates on Russia-Ukraine crisis now. A Ukrainian attack on the Crimean port of Feodosia damaged a large Russian landing ship, killing one person and injuring two others. Footage showed the moment of the large explosion at the Crimean port of Feodosia on Tuesday as thick plumes of smoke rose. Moscow confirmed the number of casualties and damage on Tuesday after Kyiv said it had destroyed an important Russian warship. Ukraine says at least one policeman has been killed and four others were injured in a Russian attack on a railway station in the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson on Tuesday. About 140 civilians had been at the station in the early evening, and quick action by police to direct them away saved many lives, according to Ukraine Interior Minister. Ukrainian Railways said evacuees were taken from the station by bus northwest to the town of Mykolaiv. Delayed trains were rescheduled. In a nightly video address on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russian forces had shelled the railway station in the southern city of Kherson, with number of casualties still to be determined.
There was a Russian strike on the Kherson railway station. There was an evacuation train. All services are now on site. The number of dead and injured is being established. There were many civilians there.
Ukrainian Army Chief General Valery Zaluzhny said on Tuesday that he was not satisfied with the work of military draft officers that are responsible for mobilizing troops to keep up the war effort against Russian forces. Zaluzhny made the comments at a press conference in Kyiv a day after Ukraine's parliament published the text of a draft law containing reforms to the army draft program, including lowering the age of men who can be mobilized to 25 from 27.
As for the local draft offices as of now, frankly speaking, I'm not currently satisfied with the work of the draft offices. If I were satisfied with their work, we would not discuss this bill right now.
Ukraine's army chief further said on Tuesday that his troops remained in an area of the eastern town of Marinka, despite assertions by Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu that Russian troops have gained full control of the eastern Ukrainian town of Marinka. Valery Zaluzhny acknowledged to reporters that the town was in ruins, but Ukrainian troops were still positioned on its northern flank. The Turkish Parliament's Foreign Affairs Commission approved Sweden's NATO membership bid on Tuesday in a key step towards enlarging the Western Bloc. Now, this comes after 19 months of delay where Ankara had demanded security-related concessions from Stockholm. The Commission, controlled by President Erdogan's ruling party, voted to back the Swedish bid after long hours of debate. The bid had been earlier voted on in November but got postponed due to some issues. Now, this will again be put to vote in the Parliament General Assembly, where Erdogan's party also holds a majority and is expected to pass, though this will take time. In a statement following the approval, Swedish Foreign Minister Tobias Billström said that Sweden welcomed the move and looked forward towards joining NATO. Boris Rouge, NATO Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs and Security Policy, said that the Commission's approval was excellent news. Thousands gathered in front of the Central Election Commission building in Belgrade on Tuesday to protest over the recent election results. The opposition Serbia Against Violence Alliance, which placed second in general election earlier this month, has accused the ruling Serbian Progressive Party of widespread vote fraud. Serbia Against Violence has been organizing daily protests over the results in front of the Election Commission building. On Sunday evening, the protest turned violent and 38 people were detained by the police. Now, this happened after an international monitoring mission last week accused the ruling party of an unfair advantage through media bias, the improper influence of President Alexander Vučić, and voting irregularities. Marinika Tepic, a leading figure in Serbia's main opposition party, vowed on Tuesday to continue on with a hunger strike to protest against election fraud, despite a deterioration in her health after 9 days without food. She was placed on daily intravenous drips twice, following a deterioration in her health on Monday. Tepic accused authorities of including dead people on voter lists and importing voters from Bosnia and Kosovo. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on the other side of DD India News Hour, South Korea imposes sanctions on North Koreans linked to nuclear and missile development. Japan's nuclear watchdog decides to lift the ban on Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant after a series of meetings with TEPCO. We tell you more on the ban ahead. We will also give you an update on Australian weather, where severe thunderstorms have hit the area, causing widespread disruption.
India's huge leaps towards becoming self-reliant in defence sector. Policy changes enabling increased involvement of private sector. From humanitarian assistance to rescue operations. Increased synergy among armed forces through joint military exercises. Watch Echoes 2023, India's defenders at these times only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. We'll get you more international updates. The Chinese government on Wednesday threatened to place further trade sanctions on Taiwan in a further escalation of the war of words as Taiwan's presidential and parliamentary elections, which are scheduled on this January 13th, approach closer. China views the island as its own territory and sought to force Taiwan to accept Chinese sovereignty claims, while it strongly detests Taiwan's presidential candidate and current Vice President Lai Ching-te, terming him as separatist. Earlier this month, Taiwan accused China of economic coercion and election interference after Beijing announced the end of tariff cuts, claiming Taipei violated a trade agreement between the two sides signed in 2010. Moving to Asia now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has kicked off a key meeting of the country's ruling party on Wednesday, setting the stage for unveiling policy decisions for the new year. The 9th plenary meeting of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea wraps up a year during which the isolated country enshrined nuclear policy in its constitution, launching a spy satellite and firing a new intercontinental ballistic missile. The days-long assembly of the party and government officials has been used in recent years to make key policy announcements. Previously, state media released Kim's speech on New Year's Day. According to state media, on the first day of the meeting on Tuesday, participants discussed 6 major agenda items, including this year's policy and budget implementation, a draft budget for 2024, and ways to bolster the party's leadership. South Korea imposed sanctions on 8 North Koreans linked to nuclear and missile development through arms trade, cyber attacks and other illicit activities. Seoul's foreign ministry said the sanctions come days after North Korea fired a new intercontinental ballistic missile, which South Korea and the United States strongly condemned as a grave violation of UN Security Council resolutions. The newly blacklisted people include Ri Shang-ho, head of the Reconnaissance General Bureau involved in overseas hacking operations, and Yoon Chol, who helped supply nuclear materials while working in the North Korean embassy in China. Amid a prolonged stalemate at the UN, Seoul has slapped sanctions against Pyongyang independently or together with Washington and Tokyo, seeking to squeeze its funding sources. Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority on Wednesday decided to lift its de facto ban on operations at Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings' Kashiwazaki nuclear plant as early as December 27th. The nuclear watchdog determined that it now has enough information to decide to lift the ban at the plant in the Niigata Prefecture in central Japan, following additional inspections and meetings with TEPCO and its president, Tomoaki Kaboyakawa. The NRA instructed its secretariat to start procedures for lifting the ban imposed for a series of flaws in the plant's anti-terrorism measures. DD India's Patrick Falk gets us the details from Singapore.
As recently as May, Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority had decided against lifting this de facto ban. It's actually a ban on the movement of fuel because of various concerns about anti-terrorism measures and measures to prevent unauthorized access to restricted areas. But those concerns appear to have been addressed now. There have been a series of inspections since then. There have also been a series of meetings with Tokyo Electric Power's president. So this decision to lift the ban as early as today paves the way for operations to restart and for the plant to get back online. And this is important not just for TEPCO, but also for Japanese households and consumers because of rising energy inflation. It was in June, as a matter of fact, that TEPCO applied for and was granted permission to raise energy tariffs by 14%. But this restarting of the nuclear plant will mean that it can rely less on more expensive thermal energy. So it's important, as I say, for Japanese households and also for Japan's efforts towards decarbonisation. TEPCO is not actually restarting the plant right away. Apart from anything else, it still needs to apply for permission from local government authorities as well. In addition to that, TEPCO's president said, you know, this is really a matter of building trust among the people, and there has been a big emphasis not just on addressing those security measures, but also on convincing the public that, you know, there are constant improvements to security measures being made as well, and to continually build confidence. Importantly, the Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant was not impacted by the 2011 Fukushima disaster, but it was closed in the aftermath of that, along with all nuclear plants in Japan. It was impacted in 2007, as a matter of fact, by an earthquake which caused damage to the plant. So this is part of a long process, if you like, towards Japan restarting nuclear energy operations.
All right, shifting focus to Africa now. A group of opposition candidates in the Democratic Republic of Congo have rejected the outcome of last week's elections and called for a protest to denounce the vote. Partial results released on Monday show the incumbent president, Felix Tshisekedi, with a clear lead. The elections in the Central African country were marred by widespread irregularities last Wednesday. DD India's correspondent Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
5 opposition candidates in the Democratic Republic of Congo's presidential elections called for the protest in the capital, Kinshasa. They want the elections cancelled in a rerun organized by a new team of electoral officials. The DRC government has not granted the opposition candidates permission to hold the protest, but they said it's within their constitutional right. The candidates include leading opposition figures like Martin Fayulu and Denis Mukwege. They described last Wednesday's elections as a sham. The vote was marred by delays, faulty machines, and missing names on the voters' list. Authorities had to extend the voting process to Thursday. The DRC's Electoral Commission has released partial results showing the incumbent president Felix Tshisekedi with a clear lead. Vote counting continues across the vast Central African country. Nearly 44 million people were registered to vote in this year's elections that are being held amidst armed conflict in the east of the country. The electoral body is expected to release the full provisional results on December 31st. Chris Ochamringa in Kinshasa for DD India.
Kenyan digital rights campaigners have warned of a phone tracking program that could lead to increased state surveillance and invasion of privacy that the government was pressing ahead with to trace counterfeit devices and curb fraud. Kenya's Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy, Eliud Owalo, said that the government intends to go ahead with plans to roll out a device management system to allow authorities to access the unique identification number of mobile phones and block services to fake devices. But campaigners argue the technology will violate users' privacy rights, while authorities claim that the technology violated citizens' privacy were misinformation. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas will visit Mexico to meet with President of Mexico Andrés Manuel López Obrador amidst the migrant crisis. Thousands of migrants and asylum seekers continue to move slowly north across the southern Mexican state of Chiapas in a caravan hoping to reach the U.S. border. Mexican National Guard monitored migrants from Honduras and other Latin American and Caribbean countries, stopping occasionally for rest and prayer. The local authorities estimated that the average number of people per day was around 8,000. Earlier, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with his Mexican counterpart on telephone, during which the two leaders said that more enforcement was needed at their shared frontier. Australian police have confirmed the deaths of at least 6 people and 3 others are missing following severe thunderstorm in the eastern states of Australia. Getting you more on that, the storms caused flooding, high winds and torrential rains with rivers flooded and trees downed. The Bureau of Meteorology has minor flood warnings in place, and Energex, the state-owned electricity company in Queensland, reported that around 86,000 households remained without power. The storms follow the flooding caused by former tropical cyclone Jasper earlier this month. A severe winter storm is battering the northern plains and upper Midwest regions of the U.S., causing travel chaos and power outages for millions of people. The National Weather Service has issued a warning that blizzard conditions for central South Dakota into parts of Nebraska, Kansas and Colorado, resulting in difficult to near impossible travel in the aftermath of Christmas. The storm is expected to dump as much as 13 inches of snow in some areas of South Dakota, along with strong winds of up to 55 miles per hour. The harsh weather could persist until early Wednesday morning, affecting more than 1 million residents and visitors. At least 22 people died in Kasai Central Province of the Democratic Republic of Congo due to landslides caused by torrential rains. The landslide destroyed infrastructure and caused flooding, leaving families homeless. The provincial government plans to investigate the cause of the damages. In December, 14 people lost their lives in eastern Congo. Let's take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. A man in France has been arrested for murder of his wife and 4 children in a knife attack on Christmas Day. The bodies were found in a bloodied apartment in northeast of Paris. The mother and 2 daughters were stabbed numerous times, and the younger sons appear to have been suffocated or drowned. Berlin's 23rd annual Roast Goose Digestion Run saw 200 runners get fit after holiday celebrations. The run, traditionally a 5-kilometer loop, is now a tradition for senior citizens. Co-organizer Wolfgang Peach praises the sunny day after heavy rains, wearing a Santa costume and mock goose. Chinese designer Wang Xinzing has developed a humanoid robot named H1 that can walk as fast as a human adult and is powered by AI technology. The robot, which stands 1.8 meters tall and weighs 47 kilograms, has been developed in just half a year. Turkey's Interior Ministry announced that 23 luxury cars confiscated from crime organizations were turned into traffic police vehicles. The vehicles, including Bentley, Porsche and Volvo, were painted white and blue with traffic police written on them. The event, which resumed 3 years after the pandemic, raises elephant awareness. A documentary about King Charles III's coronation year was released on December 26th, featuring him interacting with his son and grandchildren at Westminster Abbey and off-duty walking around Balmoral with Queen Camilla. The film Charles III, The Coronation Year, will be screened on BBC One in the UK. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with beneficiaries of Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra today. After the recent ambush by the security forces in Jammu and Kashmir, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to visit the area to review the security situation. And a thick layer of dense fog engulfs many parts of northern India, bringing visibility to 0.
India's huge leaps towards becoming self-reliant in defence sector. Policy changes enabling increased involvement of private sector, from humanitarian assistance to rescue operations. Increased synergy among armed forces through joint military exercises. Watch Echoes 2023, India's Defenders at these times only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick recap of the top stories once again. US President Joe Biden speaks to leaders of Israel, Egypt and Qatar in the wake of Hamas hostage deal. IDF chief warns Israel-Gaza conflict will continue for months. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov to hold bilateral talks in Moscow today. The minister holds productive meeting with Russia's Deputy Prime Minister, affirms bilateral cooperation. Sweden edges closer to NATO after vote in Turkish Parliamentary Commission. Vote expected to be held within weeks in Parliament General Assembly. In neighbouring Pakistan, former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has appealed to the Supreme Court once again to nullify his conviction in the Tosha Khana case, Pakistan's Geo News reported. The move comes after the Supreme Court Registrar's Office raised objections to his initial appeal, directing him to refile it with all relevant papers by January 6th. Khan had been found guilty of graft in the Tosha Khana case, leading to his disqualification from holding any public office for 5 years. Imran Khan filed a fresh petition arguing that the suspension of only his sentence instead of the entire order of conviction by the trial court denies him his fundamental right to contest elections. He is eyeing the upcoming general election scheduled for February 8th next year. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Election Commission has accepted former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's nomination papers for February 8th general elections, despite questions about his eligibility following a lifelong disqualification by the apex court. Nawaz Sharif's lawyer, Amjad Parvez, said no objections have been raised to his candidature, and he will contest both from Lahore and Mansara city of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region now. Parvez added Sharif's disqualification has ended after his acquittal in corruption references against him. Sharif was acquitted in 2 major corruption cases by the Islamabad High Court. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who was on a visit to Russia, met Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov in Moscow for a comprehensive and constructive discussion of the two nations' bilateral economic relations. Both the leaders appreciated the greater focus on exploring new opportunities and also noted the significant progress in trade, finance, connectivity, energy, civil aviation and nuclear domains. Both the leaders also witnessed signing of agreements on nuclear power and in areas of medicines, pharmaceutical substances and medical devices. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will hold talks with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Wednesday. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also visited the Russian Industry and Trade Exhibition with Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov. The minister highlighted it as an interesting exposition on Russia's contemporary capabilities and that it holds promise for greater collaboration between the two countries. DD India correspondent Meghna Dev joins us live. Meghna, it is the 3rd day of his visit to Russia. Spell out more details because we tell our viewers that External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will be meeting his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. Spell out more as to what could be taken up in the agenda.
So, yes, definitely, we see that the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is on a visit to Russia and he is on this 5-day-long visit. He's in Moscow as of now, and he will be traveling to St. Petersburg in the next part of this visit, this 5-day-long visit. He is meeting the Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, and he will be holding an interaction with him as well, holding a meeting with him as well, where there will be different subjects obviously discussed, looking at the previous engagement that happened with the Deputy Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar. We definitely see that trade is something that is prominent on the agenda when we are talking about this important visit. There will be definitely talks on trade, economy, banking, logistics. There will also be talks on how there can be mutual settlements in national currencies. That will be something that will be on priority in the agenda in the meeting between Dr. Jaishankar and Sergei Lavrov. We will also have to see what more focuses in, because there will be talks on obviously the current situation globally, the situation in Ukraine, the situation between the Israel-Hamas conflict. We also will definitely have an idea on where both the nations stand in terms of their stance at the UN, at the G20, at the SCO. Also, we know that Russia is the chair for the BRICS coming year, that is next year in 2024. Russia is the chair of the BRICS. So what will be the priorities of the BRICS countries? That will be something that can be discussed between both the foreign ministers. We definitely know that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Johannesburg for the BRICS summit this year in August, and now when the Russian when Russia is going to take over the presidency next year, there can be discussions on what more can feature on the agenda between both the foreign ministers. Besides that, also when we actually see, it's an important milestone in terms of trade that this year will be reaching, or will be going beyond the milestone with about $50 billion trade, or even beyond that. So trade has great momentum and more scope for discussions. So this is going to be something very prominent on the agenda and the meeting between both the foreign ministers.
All right, Meghna, you've given us the areas of convergence between the two countries. Also, we tell our viewers that yesterday the External Affairs Minister held a meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister, and we've given a broad outline of the topics or the issues that were taken up, and the memorandum of understanding had been signed. Can we get more details? Because we tell our viewers that the field of medicine was in focus during the meeting. Can we get more details?
Medicine and pharmaceuticals were obviously important factors of the meeting. Also, domestic nuclear energy was one of the important things that featured on the meeting, intercommission governmental meeting, which took place in terms of trade, culture, and science and economic aspects. We definitely know that yesterday when Dr. Jaishankar did visit that exhibition where Russia had showcased what it's done in terms of domestic nuclear energy, what it has done in terms of what's the engineers of Russia have done in terms of public digital infrastructure and digital infrastructure. So that is what something that he was shown about. Also, today also there will be an extension of talks on development of hydrocarbons in the Arctic shelf and Russia Far East. So that is going to be important. And when we definitely know that Vibrant Gujarat summit is round the corner. Always Russia has a prominent presence in the Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit, which will be held in Gujarat, the western state of India, in the first half of January. So that is going to be an important event as well, where a lot of Russian representation is always expected. So, these are some important aspects that had been discussed. And obviously, when we're talking about defense sector, we definitely know that defense holds a lot promise between India and Russia. And when we're talking about defense technology, we're talking about the manufacturing sector. There is a lot that was talked about yesterday as well, and today also it might feature prominently in the talks. Also, when we're talking about the diaspora event that Dr. Jaishankar addressed yesterday, he clearly spoke on trade. He clearly spoke on whatever the geopolitical situation has been in the past, 4 or 5 decades, Russia has been a steadfast partner. Russia has always had had supported India and vice versa. And that is the reason that Russia and India share a special privileged strategic partnership. So, these were some of the things that obviously Dr. S. Jaishankar also spoke to the diaspora in terms of both the countries being major powers. Energy is one of the important sectors also that was discussed yesterday and may also feature in the talks today between Dr. S. Jaishankar and Sergei Lavrov.
All right. So, crucial meeting today between the External Affairs Minister and Russian Foreign Minister. We leave it here. Thank you so much, Meghna, for joining us with those details. And a thick layer of dense fog engulfed many parts of northern India early on Wednesday. Many parts of the capital city are shrouded in a thick layer of fog. 35 flights in Delhi were delayed as visibility dropped to just 50 meters, disrupting movement of traffic. As many as 25 trains headed to Delhi are delayed. The Weather Office issued red alert over very dense fog in the national capital as cold wave conditions continued. The Met Department predicted dense to very dense fog conditions over Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. Apart from Delhi, several North Indian cities woke up to foggy weather that reduced visibility, while Patiala, Lucknow and Prayagraj recorded very low visibility of 25 meters. In Amritsar, it dropped to 0 meters. The IMD also forecast no significant change in minimum temperatures in northern parts of the country during the next 5 days. Tapas is joining us to get us more. Tapas, good morning. We saw how Delhiites woke up to dense fog today, and behind you I still see a hazy morning outside. Let us get more details from you. How is the day outside now?
Right, so a couple of things I'd like to point out. There were 2 flights from SpiceJet flights which have been diverted to Jaipur around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And the IMD has issued red alert in some of the northwestern states, especially Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, parts of Haryana, parts of Rajasthan also have been issued red warning. There are parts of Himachal Pradesh, parts of Delhi, and as well as Uttar Pradesh that have been issued orange warning. So what does it mean? That the significance of the weather is being shown here. The impact of fog, dense fog that has engulfed the whole of northwestern part of the country can be seen from the color-coded warning that the IMD has issued. So those are a couple of points that I wanted to mention. The other point is that we expect this condition to continue for the next 2 days at least. By 30th of this month, there is a western disturbance that is expected to come, and that is expected to, in fact, make things better. It is expected that with the wind direction, wind picking up speed, this particular foggy condition might improve after 30th. But in the next couple of days, at least, this kind of condition will be prevalent over the whole of northwestern part of the country, and the temperature is expected to hover about 7 to 8 degrees Celsius in Delhi and nearby areas, but it's expected to drop significantly in places like Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. So people out there in the hilly area, watch out and be careful about, especially if you are traveling in the hilly area. The dense fog is expected to play havoc when it comes to traveling plans. Preeti.
All right, Tapas, we'll leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. Moving on, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with beneficiaries of the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, which is a nationwide outreach initiative to raise awareness about saturation of various welfare schemes through video conferencing today. Thousands of beneficiaries from across the country will join the event. Union ministers, MPs, MLAs and local level representatives will also join the program. Since its launch on 15th of November this year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has regularly interacted with the beneficiaries of Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra all across the country. The Indian government has issued an advisory to social media platforms to comply with IT rules. The advisory emphasized clear communication of prohibited content and reporting obligations to address deep fake and doctored video concerns. The advisory mandates that intermediaries communicate prohibited content, particularly those specified under Rule 3(1)(b) of the IT rules, clearly and precisely to the users. The advisory stated that the content should not be permitted under IT rules, in particular those listed under Rule 31(b), must be clearly communicated to the users in clear language and precise language. Rule 31B within the due diligence section of the IT rule mandates intermediaries to communicate their rules, regulations, private policy and user agreement in the user's preferred language. They are also obliged to ensure reasonable efforts to prevent users from hosting, displaying, uploading, modifying, publishing, transmitting, storing, updating or sharing any information related to the 11 listed user harms or content prohibited on digital intermediaries. This rule aims to ensure platforms identify and promptly remove misinformation, false or misleading content and material impersonating others, including deepfakes. In line with the government's endeavour to shift major events to different parts of the country, the capital of the northern state of Uttar Pradesh is set to host the Army Day Parade 2024 on January 15th. Earlier, the Indian Army Day Parade was conducted at Delhi Cantonment every year with an aim to wider public engagement and to highlight the distinct cultural and regional backdrops. The Indian Army has planned to ensure that each of its 6 operational commands gets a chance to host the parade. Hence, the 2023 Army Day was hosted in Bangalore, which comes under the Southern Command area. This year's event will be conducted in Lucknow, which is the Central Command Zone. Ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the pilgrim city of Ayodhya, Deputy Chief Minister of the northern state of Uttar Pradesh, Keshav Prasad Maurya, inspected the Maryada Purushottam Shri Ram International Airport. He also held a meeting with the officials regarding the preparations from Prime Minister's arrival. We now take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from India. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will visit the North Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir today to review the security situation, especially in the border districts of Rajouri and Poonch after witnessing terror attacks recently. Security outside Israeli embassy and other Israeli establishments in the capital New Delhi has been tightened in the wake of Tuesday's explosion near the Israeli embassy. The performance of 1,282 tabla players simultaneously in the Tal Darbar program organized under the Tansen Festival in the music city of India's Madhya Pradesh, Gwalior, has done an unprecedented job of registering its name in the Guinness Book of World Records. Prime Minister Modi has congratulated the entire team on social media platform X. A short break ahead, but when we come back, we tell you Wall Street ends higher in the final stretch of 2023. Fed will begin cutting interest rates soon. South Korean actor Lee Sun-kyun of the Oscar-winning film Parasite found dead. Stay with us to know the reason of the actor's demise. And India's KL Rahul held fort as India crossed 200, but South Korea still on top at stumps on day 1.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to updates from the world of business now. Asian stocks rose broadly on Wednesday, tracking a rally from Wall Street as traders wind down with few critical economic data releases scheduled between now and the end of the month. The market mood continues to be dominated by the prospect that major central banks globally could begin easing rates in 2024, with the Fed taking the lead. Japan's Nikkei rose 1.2%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was last up 0.9% in its first trading day after being closed for the Christmas and Boxing Day holidays. U.S. stocks extended their rally on Tuesday, kicking off the final week of this year. with expectations that the Fed will begin cutting interest rates as soon as March. All the three major U.S. stock indices rose in light trading. S&P 500 gained 0.42%, touching its highest intraday level since January last year. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.54% and the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.43%. All three are on track for monthly, quarterly and annual gains. Apple appealed a ban on Apple Watch imports due to a complaint from medical monitoring technology company Masimo following a government tribunal decision by President Biden's administration on Tuesday. The tech giant requested the Federal Circuit to halt the ban on Apple's redesigned watches until U.S. Customs and Border Protection decides whether redesigned versions of its watches infringe Masimo's patents. Masimo has accused Apple of hiring away its employees, stealing its pulse oximetry technology and incorporating it into the popular Apple Watch. Actor Lee Sun-kyun, who took his own life on Wednesday at the age of 48 amid an investigation into alleged drug abuse, was at the peak of his acting career. In 2021, the veteran actor won a Screen Actors Guild Award along with his castmates of Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. Last year, he was also nominated for the Best Actor Award at the International Emmy Awards for his role in the sci-fi film Dr. Brain. Lee has been under investigation over illegal drug use allegations amid an ongoing government crackdown on illegal drugs. His wife had reported to police that Lee had left home and she had found what appeared to be a suicide note. Lee was found unconscious inside a car at a park in Seoul. Let's talk of sports now. In cricket, India are playing South Africa in the first test in Centurion. Team India scored 208 for the loss of 8 wickets after 59 overs on day one after the play was called off early due to rain. KL Rahul held fort from one end to stage India's comeback after Kagiso Rabada punched India's batsmen to wrap it on low scores. Virat Kohli and Shreyas Iyer contributed 38 and 31 runs respectively after Africa struck early before lunch. KL Rahul then took the responsibility upon himself to help India cross 200 runs and was unbeaten on 70 runs. Shardul Thakur played a cameo of 24 runs. Rabada was the sole destroyer as he took a 5-wicket haul. Nandre Burger took 2 wickets while Marco Jansen took 1. Earlier, South Africa's captain Themba Bavuma won the toss and put India into bat first. Day 2 will start half an hour early to make up for the lost overs on day 1 due to rain. Instead of 1:30 p.m. IST, the day will start at 1 p.m. IST. From cricket to tennis now, Aryna Sabalenka fought back from a set down to beat Ons Jabeur in an entertaining exhibition match in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. The Belarusian world number 2 started slowly against the Tunisian Ons Jabeur, who claimed the first set comfortably. However, reigning Australian Open champion Sabalenka found the range with her heavy ground strokes in the second set, eventually running out the winner for 6-6, 6-3, 6-2 in a match which lasted nearly 2 hours. On to Saudi Pro League now. Cristiano Ronaldo and Sadio Mane netted 2 goals apiece to help Al Nassr to a 5-2 win over Karim Benzema's Al Ittihad as they tried to keep pace with Saudi Pro League leaders Al Hilal. Both of Ronaldo's scores came on penalty kicks, the first in 19th minute, equalizing a 1 each, and the second gave Al Nassr a 3-2 in the 68th minute. Mane then put the match away for good, netting goals in the 75th and 82nd minute on perfectly timed passes from Brazilians Talisca and then Otavio. Ittihad's Abderrazak Hamdallah kept his side in the match early with goals in the 14th minute to open the scoring and then in the 51st minute to take a 2-1 lead. Victory moved second placed Nasser to 43 points on the season, but 7 behind idle Al Hilal. Ittihad sit down in the 6th position on 28 points. Liverpool returned to the top of the Premier League as Darwin Nunez's first league goal for almost 2 months helped them to a 2-0 victory at the struggling Burnley on Tuesday. Nunez's precision finish after 6 minutes gave Liverpool a flying start at Turf Moor, but Jurgen Klopp's side were unable to kill off the hosts as the second goal would not come. Mohamed Saleh was denied by the crossbar and both Cody Gakpo and Harvey Elliott had goals disallowed as Burnley hung on, but Diogo Jota's 90th minute effort sealed the points. Liverpool's first win in 3 league games moved them above Arsenal as they reached the halfway point of the season on 42 points. Arsenal, who have 40, host West Ham United on Thursday. And now we get to a special report telling you how 2023 has been for tennis. Let's talk about that. 15 years after he won his first major title in 2008, Novak Djokovic was easily the story of the tennis year in 2023. Apart from Djokovic, Coco Gauff's maiden major at her home slam, to Carlos Alcaraz's stunning Wimbledon win, and Iga Swiatek's continued dominance on the women's side, there was no shortage of action in tennis in the year 2023.
Serbian superstar Novak Djokovic turned 36 years young amidst his season to remember but seemed ageless. He matched the all-time Grand Slam record of 24 with a trio of majors this year, with victories at the Australian Open, Roland Garros and US Open across 56 match wins, 7 total titles and a record 8th finish as the year-end world number 1. Carlos Alcaraz finished last season as the youngest world number 1 ever and looked primed to become the one to beat in 2023. But injuries set back his early season campaign before Djokovic halted his much-anticipated effort at Roland Garros, beating the Spaniard in the semi-finals. But it was Wimbledon where Alcaraz came into his own. In just his third career grass court event, Alcaraz rode into the finals, setting up a must-see clash with Djokovic. It was the then 20-year-old who prevailed in 5 dramatic sets. In women's tennis, the 19-year-old American Coco Gauff became the first American teen since Serena Williams to win the US Open crown some 4 years after her stunning breakthrough at Wimbledon at age 15. Along with Gauff, it was a headline-grabbing year for each of Arna Sabalenka and Marketa Vondrousova. But Poland's Iga Swiatek rode the roller coaster of being world number 1 for much of the year. Swiatek won her 3rd French Open title, claiming 6 titles overall and ending the season on a high by winning the WTA finals and reclaiming the top ranking.
All right, with that, we end this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.